What we mean by the alphas in advice is that as asset managers, there's often maybe too much focus on the ability for active managers or asset managers or model portfolio providers, on the performance element rather than necessarily the outcome element. And I think when thinking about advice, the returns and the outcomes that you can generate are much more tangible. To give you an example, I was talking to a financial advisor the other day who had managed through a couple to draw down £60,000 a year with a net effective tax rate of just 6%. And these are huge tangible difference because they're using the various different buckets through tax planning, whether it's their ISAs, their income allowance, their SIPs, etc. That makes massive differences to them, much more so perhaps than whether I should pick this model portfolio or that model portfolio. So as asset managers, we need to do more than just promise, the kind of the ability to outperform. We need to be much more tangible. We need to provide solutions, not just product. We need to work with advisors to help them meet their goals and objectives. And that's what we try and do at Pacific. So I think technology obviously is hugely important. And I think you can't pick up a paper or read anything on Bloomberg without the word technology being thrown into your face. And I think that whilst the asset management business and that service element will always remain there, technology is a way of improving and creating better operational leverage and better efficiencies within a business. And so it's incredibly important. And I think asset managers in the past have had access to great technology, but haven't always used that technology as part of their engagement tools to work with financial advisors. They perhaps focused too much on this is our ability to deliver performance, rather than saying how do we engage with you? And using really robust infrastructure and technology, and we're obsessed with technology, so much so that our database even has a name, Ada, after Ada Lovelace, the first female programmer. And we use all of that technology and all of that infrastructure to try and create bespoke, customized solutions for advisors, rather than just giving cookie-cutter, off-the-shelf product that we claim, will outperform the peer group. So that's how we use technology, and that's how important it is, not just from a financial advisor perspective, but hugely important for us as asset managers to leverage that experience and try and use that technology infrastructure to help advisors reach their goals. So ESG is clearly hugely important, and obviously we're signatory to the UN PRI. We look at ESG through multiple lenses. We look at carbon intensity, we look at the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and actually we've been running ESG and sustainable portfolios we have one of the longest track records going back to 2012 in that space. But what was interesting for me is that with ESG, is that what was once sold as a framework for investing was starting to be sold as a sort of promise of outperformance. And that started to worry me. Whilst asset managers love talking about anecdotes and love selling anecdotes, I think one of the really tough things is that people really need to understand what the consumer wants and how well and informed the consumer is around all things ESG and how that relates to their investments. So actually as a business, we created a separate company called Enlighten ESG, which was to try and look at how sustainability meets suitability. It's almost that third dimension. If you have risk and reward as on your first dimension, or first and second dimension, you have a third dimension that looks through it is how sustainable you want to be on that risk-reward spectrum. And Enlighten ESG is a consumer product that's trying to help people achieve that. And it's an example of what Pacific are doing to work with financial advisors, going back to your technology question, and using technology to create really interesting engagement tools. And so ESG is incredibly important from an investment perspective, but it's also hugely important to understand what it means to the advisor and the client too, and we're trying to help crack that nut.